The first thing she felt was the cold. Not the gentle kind that numbs slowly. This cold bit. It clawed at her lungs and sliced across her skin like tiny knives. Every breath burned. Every step sent pain shooting up her legs. Snow packed into the torn soles of her boots, soaking through, freezing her toes until she could barely feel them anymore. She was running. Not because she wanted to. Not because she had a plan. She was running because stopping meant dying. The forest rushed past her in broken flashes of white and black. Tall pines blurred together, their branches heavy with snow, bending low as if trying to trap her, to slow her down. The wind screamed through them, a wild, furious sound that echoed her own panic. It wasn't just a storm. It felt alive, angry, as if the mountain itself had turned against her. Her breath came out in ragged gasps, fogging the air in front of her face. Her chest burned. Her heart pounded, so hard it felt like it might shatter her ribs from the inside. She tasted blood at the back of her throat and didn't know when she'd bitten her lip, only that the metallic tang mixed with the sharp scent of pine and ice. She stumbled. Her boot caught on a hidden root buried beneath the snow, and she pitched forward, hands slamming into the frozen ground. Pain exploded through her palms, sharp and bright. The impact knocked the air from her lungs, and for one terrifying second, she couldn't breathe at all. Get up. The thought screamed through her mind, louder than the wind, louder than the fear. She pushed herself up, fingers slipping, nails scraping over ice. Her knees screamed in protest as she forced them under her again. Blood stained the snow where she'd fallen, dark and ugly against the white. It didn't stay red for long. The cold pulled the heat from it fast, freezing it into something darker, almost silver in the moonlight. The moon. It hung low and full above the trees, bright and merciless. Watching. She could feel it on her skin like a weight, like an eye that never blinked. The full moon always made things worse. Louder, stronger, harder to control. Tonight, it felt like a judge passing sentence. Her lungs burned as she ran again, faster now, legs shaking, muscles screaming. The cold cut through her torn jacket, through the thin shirt beneath, straight to her bones. Every breath hurt, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't, because she wasn't alone. She could hear them now. At first it had been only a feeling, that prickle at the back of her neck, that deep, animal certainty that something was wrong, that she was being watched, hunted. Now there was no denying it. Heavy footfalls pounded through the forest behind her, steady and relentless. Too fast to be human. Too coordinated to be anything but wolves. Not wild ones, either. These moved with purpose, with training, with cruelty sharpened into instinct. A low growl rolled through the trees, vibrating in her chest. It wasn't loud, not yet. It didn't need to be. It was a promise. Her stomach twisted with terror. They were closing in. She veered sharply to the left, ducking between two thick trunks, branches whipping at her face, tearing at her hair. Something snagged and ripped, and she cried out before she could stop herself. The sound felt like a mistake the moment it left her mouth. The growls grew louder. Her pulse roared in her ears. Her heartbeat thundered so hard the ground beneath her feet seemed to tremble with it. She felt it in her bones, a strange vibration that didn't quite make sense. The snow beneath her boots shook, just slightly, as if responding to her panic. No, not now. She shoved the thought away, forcing herself to focus. To stay present. To stay human. Her scent trailed behind her, sharp and unmistakable. Fear. Blood. Something else. Something wrong. She could smell it herself, and the realization made her chest tighten. It was her scent, but twisted. Changed. Like smoke mixed with iron. Like silver heated too fast. That was why they were hunting her. She was different. A howl cut through the storm, long and piercing, raising the hair on her arms. Her vision blurred as tears burned in her eyes, freezing almost instantly on her lashes. She wiped at them angrily, even as another howl answered the first, closer this time. They were her people. Or they had been. The memory hit her without warning, sharp as a blade. Firelight. A circle of faces. Eyes filled with fear and disgust instead of love. You're Chamming. The word echoed in her mind, just as it had that night.
Poisonous.
Final. Another voice, older. Harder. Monster. She had tried to speak then. Tried to explain. To tell them she didn't know why it was happening, that she was scared too. But they hadn't listened. Abomination. The word had landed like a death sentence. Her foot slipped again as the memory tore through her, and she barely caught herself this time, hands grabbing onto a low branch to steady herself. The bark cut into her palms, and fresh blood welled up, steaming faintly in the freezing air. Steam. She stared at it for half a second too long. Her blood wasn't just red anymore. It shimmered. Silver threads ran through it, faint but unmistakable, catching the moonlight in a way that made her stomach drop. Heat rolled off it in waves, completely wrong against the brutal cold. She yanked her hand back, smearing blood across her sleeve, heart racing even faster. Don't look. Don't think. If she thought about it, if she let herself feel it, she knew what would happen. Another growl thundered behind her, closer now, close enough that she could hear breath, hear claws biting into ice and dirt. Snow sprayed as something massive burst through the underbrush, and she screamed, raw and desperate, pushing herself beyond what her body could handle. Her legs burned like fire. Her lungs felt shredded. Every instinct screamed at her to stop running, to turn, to fight. That instinct scared her more than the wolves, because she could feel it, the power. It curled low in her belly, hot and restless, like something waking up after a long sleep. With every pounding heartbeat, it surged stronger, spreading through her veins. The tremors beneath her feet grew more noticeable now, the ground responding to her fear, her anger, her desperation. She clenched her jaw, forcing her breathing to stay as steady as possible.
No. No shifting. Not now.
Last time she'd lost control, everything had gone wrong. She remembered the heat, unbearable and blinding. The way her bones had felt like they were breaking and reforming at the same time. The way her scream had turned into something inhuman. And the looks on their faces when it was over. Horror. Revulsion.
Fear.
Another sound cut through the storm, sharper than the howls. A horn. Her heart shattered. She knew that sound. She had grown up with it. Heard it during celebrations. During hunts. During warnings meant to protect the pack. Now it was being used to track her. The signal echoed through the mountains, low and resonant, vibrating deep in her chest. It told them where she was. It told them she was still alive.
For now.
Her vision tunneled as panic threatened to swallow her whole. The forest seemed to close in, trees blurring together, branches grabbing at her like accusing hands. Why won't you just die? The thought wasn't hers. Or maybe it was. Maybe it was the voice of everything they'd ever said about her, curling around her heart and squeezing. She tripped again, this time crashing hard onto her side. Pain exploded through her ribs, stealing her breath. She lay there for a split second, stunned, staring up at the moon through the whipping snow. It was so bright, so cold. Her chest heaved as she sucked in air, pain screaming through her body. She tried to move and cried out as her ribs protested. Something felt wrong there. Cracked, maybe broken. Footsteps pounded closer. She could hear them clearly now. Multiple. Spreading out. Encircling her. Her fingers dug into the snow, nails scraping against ice and dirt beneath. Her body shook, not just from the cold anymore. Something else was pushing at her skin from the inside, begging to be let out. Her blood pulsed, silver light flickering faintly beneath her skin, visible now along her wrists, her neck. Heat rolled off her in waves, melting the snow around her body, turning it into steam that rose in ghostly curls. She squeezed her eyes shut.
Please.
Not like this.
She didn't want to die like this. Hunted. Hated.
Branded a monster until the very end. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. Then another. Glowing eyes appeared between the trees, one pair, then two, then more. Yellow,
Green.
cold, and merciless. Massive shapes paced just beyond the circle of light cast by the moon, waiting, watching. Her breath hitched as a low growl rolled through the clearing, vibrating the ground beneath her. It was deep and dominant, a sound meant to make prey freeze. It almost worked. Her hands shook as she pushed herself up onto her elbows. Every instinct screamed at her to submit, to bow her head, to accept the end.
But something inside her snapped. No.
She wasn't theirs anymore. Her heart slammed hard enough to rattle her teeth, and the ground shuddered in response, a visible tremor rippling through the snow. The wolves paused, momentarily thrown off balance, growls turning uncertain. She stared down at her hands as silver light flared brighter beneath her skin, racing along her veins like liquid fire. Fear twisted in her chest. This was exactly what they were afraid of. What she was afraid of. Her breathing turned shallow as she fought it, every muscle in her body locked tight. She forced the power down, forced it back into the deepest corners of herself, even as it burned and clawed, desperate to be free. Her vision swam. Black spots danced at the edges. If she lost control now, she wouldn't just die. She would prove them right. The horn sounded again, closer than before. She dragged herself back to her feet, pain screaming through her ribs, legs trembling so hard she almost collapsed again. Blood dripped from her hands, from her knees, steaming as it hit the snow. She took one step, then another.
Run.
She broke into motion again, half stumbling, half falling through the trees, the storm screaming around her. Branches tore at her hair, her clothes, her skin, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't feel much anymore anyway. Everything blurred together into cold and pain and fear. Her heartbeat pounded, so hard it felt like it might rip her apart from the inside. With every beat, the ground quivered, the trees shuddered, snow sliding from branches in soft avalanches. She was losing control. She knew it. The wolves surged forward, sensing it too, howls rising in excitement now. They were close enough that she could smell them.
Vet fur. Blood.
Authority. Her former alphas sent cut through the rest, sharp and commanding, and it made bile rise in her throat. She pushed harder, lungs screaming, vision narrowing, the world tilting dangerously. Just a little farther. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't stop. The forest thinned suddenly, trees giving way to a steep slope. Her foot hit ice, and this time there was no catching herself. She went down hard, sliding, tumbling, snow and rock tearing at her body as she screamed. Pain exploded everywhere at once, bright and overwhelming. She hit something solid at the bottom with a sickening crack, and the world went white. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the cold rushed back in. She lay there, broken and shaking, staring up at the swirling snow, chest barely rising and falling. Every breath felt like knives. She couldn't feel her legs properly anymore. The wolves gathered at the edge of the slope, their shapes looming above her, eyes glowing in the storm. This is it. Her heart slowed, heavy and exhausted. Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes, freezing against her skin. If this is the end,
I am sorry.
The thought drifted through her mind, not sure who it was meant for. Her mother, maybe. The girl she used to be. The monster they said she was. The silver light beneath her skin flared suddenly, bright and fierce, reacting to the finality of her fear. Heat poured off her body, melting the snow around her in a wide circle, steam rising thick and blinding. The wolves hesitated. The ground trembled. Her heartbeat thundered, loud enough to drown out the storm. She clenched her fists, teeth gritted, every muscle locked as she fought the transformation with everything she had left. Not like this. Not as their proof. The storm howled louder, the wind screaming through the trees like a warning. The moon burned bright overhead, watching, waiting. And somewhere deep in the darkness, something else stirred. Something ancient. Something that had been watching her run. The storm stopped. Not slowly. Not gently. It didn't fade or weaken. It stopped as if something had reached up and crushed it in its fist. The wind died mid-howl. Snow that had been tearing sideways through the air fell straight down instead, soft and quiet. The screaming branches went still. Even the wolves at the ridge froze, their growls cutting off as if someone had stolen the sound from their throats. The silence was so sudden it hurt. She felt it before she understood it. The pressure in the air changed. The cold was still there, sharp and biting, but something heavier pushed through it. Something solid, commanding, like the mountain itself had drawn a breath and decided to stand. Her heart stuttered. The silver light beneath her skin flickered, then pulled inward, retreating as if it recognized something stronger. Footsteps sounded behind her. Not the frantic pound of pursuit. Not the careless crunch of a wolf tearing through snow. These steps didn't crunch at all. They moved through the frozen ground without disturbing it, as if the snow knew better than to resist. Every muscle in her body locked. The wolves at the ridge backed away, low whines slipping from their throats before they could stop them. One of them growled, uncertain, and immediately fell silent, tail dropping between its legs. A shadow shifted through the steam rising around her. Then he stepped into view. He was massive, not just tall but broad, built like something carved instead of born. His presence bent the space around him, made the trees seem smaller, the mountain less certain of itself. Snow brushed against his shoulders and slid off without clinging, as if it didn't dare stay. Moonlight struck his face, and she sucked in a sharp breath she hadn't meant to take. Golden eyes. Not pale. Not soft. Gold, deep and burning, like molten metal caught in a stare. They cut through the darkness and landed on her with terrifying precision, stripping her bare in a single glance. His face was hard. Strong lines. A jaw that looked like it had never known hesitation. Scars crossed his skin, old and pale, some sharp and clean, others jagged like reminders of battles that hadn't ended neatly. They weren't hidden. They weren't softened. They were worn like a crown. Power rolled off him in steady waves, not wild or chaotic like hers, but controlled, measured. The kind of power that didn't need to prove itself. The forest bowed to it anyway. She tried to move. Her body refused. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to crawl, to disappear. Another part of her, deeper and quieter, leaned forward instead, aching, recognizing something it hadn't felt in years. Safety. That thought scared her more than the wolves ever had. His gaze dropped to the silver glow still faintly pulsing beneath her skin.
His jaw tightened.
For a split second, something dark and furious flashed through his eyes. Then he looked at her face. And he said her name. He didn't shout it. He didn't snarl it. He spoke it low, steady, as if he had carried it with him for a long time and finally decided to let it out. The sound of it hit her harder than any blow. Her breath caught painfully in her chest. Her vision blurred. Her knees threatened to give out all over again. No one had said her name like that in years. Not without fear. Not without disgust. Not without a weapon hidden behind it. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her throat closed around the name, around the memories tied to it. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed hearing it spoken without hatred until that moment. His eyes never left her face. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped closer. The wolves behind him bristled, hackles rising, but none of them dared move forward. The Alpha King didn't look back at them. He didn't need to. She dragged in a shallow breath as his presence washed over her, heavy and overwhelming. The heat rolling off him cut through the cold, sank into her skin, eased the ache in her bones just enough to remind her how badly she hurt. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Her pulse jumped. The silver beneath her skin stirred again, not frantic this time, but alert, curious. Her wolf, silent and caged for so long, lifted its head and pressed forward, drawn toward him like a compass finding north. She hated that. Fear flared sharp and hot, chasing away the brief relief. Don't trust him. She had trusted before. She had believed in people who smiled at her and promised protection, who told her she belonged. She'd learned what that was worth. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the flecks of darker gold in his eyes, close enough that his scent wrapped around her and made her head spin. Smoke. Pine. Something old and deep, like stone warmed by the sun. He reached out. She flinched hard, a broken sound tearing out of her throat as she scrambled backward, hands slipping in the slush. Pain flared through her ribs again, bright and sharp. His hand froze midair. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then he lowered it slowly, deliberately, palm open, empty. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said. His voice was rough, edged with something like restraint, like he was holding back more than just words. She laughed weakly. The sound cracked and ugly. "That's what they all say." Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, not offense. Understanding. He took another step forward, and she tried to push herself back again, but her body betrayed her. Her strength was gone, burned out by fear and cold and pain. Her arms shook as she struggled, breath coming in sharp gasps. Before she could fall, he moved. Fast. One moment he was in front of her. The next, he was blocking her path entirely, his body a solid wall between her and the slope, between her and the wolves. She slammed into his chest with a soft, helpless sound. He caught her without effort. His hand closed around her upper arm, firm but not crushing, steadying her. Heat surged through the point of contact, shocking in its intensity. She sucked in a breath, eyes flying wide. His growl rumbled low in his chest. Not at her. At the wolves. It rolled through the clearing like thunder, vibrating through her bones, through the ground, through the trees. The sound was pure dominance, pure command. Every wolf behind him dropped instantly, bellies pressed to the snow, heads bowed. Except one. The largest of them, a dark shape with pale eyes, lifted its head and snarled, lips peeling back to reveal gleaming teeth. It took one step forward, defiant. The Alpha King's grip tightened on her arm, just slightly, as if anchoring her. He leaned down, close enough that his breath brushed her ear. "Stay," he said. It wasn't a request. Her body obeyed before she could think better of it. He straightened and turned. The air seemed to recoil as he faced the wolves fully. His shoulders rolled back, his stance widening, power pouring off him in visible waves. Snow rippled outward from his feet, a silent shockwave that knocked the defiant wolf off balance. The Alpha King didn't shift.
He didn't need to.
He moved like a predator already in full control of its form. The first wolf lunged. It didn't even get close. The Alpha King stepped into its path and struck, his movement a blur. There was a wet crack, sharp and final, and the wolf hit the ground hard, sliding across the snow in a lifeless heap. The others attacked together, fear-driven and desperate. He met them head-on. She watched, frozen, heart pounding, as he tore through them with terrifying efficiency. He didn't waste motion, didn't roar or posture. Every strike was deliberate. Bone shattered, blood sprayed, steaming in the cold air. The ground shook beneath his feet with each movement, responding to his dominance like it was a living thing. One wolf tried to slip past him, jaws snapping toward her. She screamed. The Alpha King was there instantly, his hand closing around the wolf's throat mid-leap. He lifted it effortlessly, golden eyes blazing, and snapped its neck with a single twist. Silence fell again. Bodies lay scattered across the snow, dark shapes against white. Steam rose thick and heavy, carrying the scent of blood and iron. The horn sounded once more in the distance. The Alpha King turned his head slightly, listening. His expression hardened. "They're not stopping," he said quietly. He looked down at her. She realized then that she was shaking uncontrollably, her hands clenched in his coat, fingers numb and aching. She hadn't even remembered grabbing him. Her eyes met his. For the first time since this nightmare began, the fear shifted. It didn't disappear. But it wasn't alone anymore. What are you?" she whispered. His gaze didn't waver. "Someone who won't let them have you." The honesty in his voice hit her harder than any promise. He bent slightly, bringing his face closer to hers, golden eyes burning with something fierce and protective and dangerous.
"You're bleeding," he said.
His nostrils flared as he inhaled, and a growl rumbled low in his chest again, deeper this time. Possessive.
Angry.
Not at her. At what had been done to her. Her breath hitched. "Don't," she said weakly. "Don't smell me like that." His eyes snapped back to hers. "Why?" "Because if you do," she swallowed, "you'll want to turn away too." Something dark flashed across his face. He leaned closer instead. "You don't smell wrong," he said. "You smell hunted." Her chest tightened painfully. He released her arm and stepped in front of her fully, placing his body between her and the forest. He spread his stance, shoulders squared, a living barrier. "You can't stay here," he said. She let out a shaky breath that almost sounded like a laugh. "I noticed." His mouth twitched once, brief and humorless. "Can you walk?" She tried to move her legs. Pain flared, white-hot, and she cried out, sagging forward. He caught her instantly. This time he didn't let go. He scooped her up into his arms with startling ease, her body cradled against his chest. Heat enveloped her, chased away the worst of the cold, sank into her bones. She stiffened, panic flaring again. "Put me down."
"No,"
I said. "I heard you."
His voice was calm.
"Absolute. I'm not putting you down." She stared up at him, heart racing, anger and fear, and something dangerously close to relief tangling together in her chest. "You don't get to decide that." He looked down at her, golden eyes steady. "I do," he said. "Right now." The horn sounded again, closer. His jaw tightened.
"We're leaving," he said.
"Where?" she asked. "Somewhere they won't touch you." She laughed weakly, exhaustion crashing down on her all at once. "There is no place like that." He adjusted his grip, holding her more securely, his arm firm around her back.
"There is," he said.
She met his gaze, searching for the lie she was sure had to be there. She didn't find one. "You don't belong to the cold anymore," he said. And as he turned and carried her into the silent forest, away from the blood and the storm and the howling shadows, her wolf pressed closer to the surface, whispering a truth she wasn't ready to face. She wasn't alone anymore. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all. He carried her for a long time, without speaking. The forest changed as they moved deeper into it. The trees grew thicker, older, their trunks wide and scarred, bark etched with symbols she didn't recognize. Snow still fell, but it felt different here, lighter, quieter, like it didn't want to disturb whatever slept beneath the ground. The air was warmer too, subtly so, enough that her teeth stopped chattering and her breathing eased into something less frantic. She should have been terrified. A stranger. An alpha king. Arms strong enough to snap spines without effort. Power that made the wolves who hunted her crawl and beg. Instead, exhaustion dragged her under in slow waves. Her head lolled against his chest, cheek pressed to the steady rise and fall of his breathing. His heartbeat was deep and even, a low rhythm that her body clung to without permission. Heat seeped into her frozen limbs, chased away the worst of the pain, though not all of it. Every jolt of movement still sent sharp reminders through her ribs and legs. She clenched her jaw, forcing herself to stay awake. She didn't trust sleep. Not anymore. Images flickered behind her eyes anyway, uninvited, pulled free by the quiet and the warmth and the simple fact that she wasn't running anymore. The first memory was red, not blood. Moonlight. She was born under a blood moon. They had told her that story so many times it felt like it belonged to someone else. A thing said half in wonder, half in warning. The moon had been huge that night, swollen and crimson, hanging low over the packlands like a wound in the sky. The elders whispered about it in low voices, their faces tight with unease. Some said it was a blessing. Others said nothing at all, which had been worse. Her mother had gone into labor early. Too early. The midwives had panicked, voices rising as the moon climbed higher, redder, brighter. Wolves had gathered outside the den, restless and agitated, howling in a way that made even the strongest warriors uneasy. She'd come into the world screaming. They said the fire had flared higher when she took her first breath. As a child, none of that had mattered to her. She'd been small and stubborn, all scraped knees and wild hair. She'd chased butterflies through the grass, laughed too loud, climbed trees she wasn't supposed to. The other pups had followed her everywhere, even when the adults scolded them for it. She'd felt normal. Belonging had come as easily as breathing back then. It wasn't until she turned 13 that things began to change. Puberty hit her hard and fast. Her body ached in strange ways, heat pooling under her skin at odd moments, leaving her flushed and disoriented. She'd woken one night drenched in sweat, heart racing, fingers tingling like they'd been plunged into fire. When she'd pushed back the blanket, she'd screamed. Silver veins glowed beneath her skin, faint but unmistakable, tracing patterns along her arms and across her chest like living light. They pulsed with her heartbeat, brightening when she panicked, dimming when she forced herself to calm down. Her mother had rushed in, breathless, eyes wide. Then she'd gone very still. The next morning, the elders came. They circled her like predators pretending not to be. Their faces were carefully blank, voices soft and measured as they asked her questions she didn't understand. Did it hurt? Could she control it? Had she felt anything strange lately? She'd tried to answer honestly. She'd tried to be brave. That was the first time she'd seen fear in their eyes when they looked at her. After that, things shifted. She wasn't allowed to train with the others anymore. She was watched constantly, corrected for every small mistake. When her emotions ran high, when she got angry, when she cried, the silver beneath her skin flared brighter, and the elders' expressions hardened. Calm yourself, they'd say. Control it.
As if she knew how.
Her first shift should have happened at 16. Everyone's did. The pack had gathered for the ceremony, fire crackling high, drums beating in a steady rhythm that echoed through her chest. She'd stood at the center of the circle, heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. This was supposed to be the moment she truly belonged. The moon had been full that night, too. Not red, just bright. Watching. The drums had stopped. She'd closed her eyes, reached inward the way she'd been taught. And something had answered. Heat had exploded through her body, far more intense than anything she'd felt before. Not just in her bones, but in her blood, her spirit, her breath. She'd screamed as the silver veins lit up like fire beneath her skin, blazing so bright they cast light on the ground around her. The pack had recoiled. Her shift hadn't been clean. Not wolf. Not human. Something in between. Her body had burned and twisted, not breaking, not reforming, but merging. Spirit and flesh colliding, overlapping, becoming something new and terrifying. Silver flame had poured from her like breath, licking the air, scorching the earth where it touched. The fire hadn't hurt anyone, but that hadn't mattered. The elders had shouted. Warriors had drawn weapons. Her mother had tried to reach her and been dragged back. When it was over, she'd collapsed to the ground, naked and shaking, silver light still flickering faintly beneath her skin. No one had come to cover her. The word had been spoken then, loud and clear, so everyone could hear it. Chamming. Unstable magic.
Corruption.
A flaw in the bloodline. They said her power responded to emotion, that it couldn't be controlled the way a wolf could. That it would only grow stronger, more volatile. That she was a danger. She'd searched their faces for kindness, for doubt. She hadn't found any. Her exile had come quickly after that. There was no trial, no chance to prove herself. The elders met in secret. Decisions were made without her. By the time her mother tried to argue, it was already too late. She remembered standing in the center of the den, pack members gathered around, some avoiding her gaze, others staring openly with fear and disgust. Her mother had been silent, jaw clenched, hands shaking at her sides. Her father hadn't looked at her at all. That had hurt more than the shouted accusations. "You will leave before dawn," the Alpha had said. "If you return, you will be hunted." She'd waited for someone to protest. No one did. Her mother had tried to step forward then, voice trembling, but one of the elders had raised a hand. For the good of the pack. Those words had echoed in her head as she packed what little she could carry, hands numb, heart breaking piece by piece. Her mother hadn't been allowed to speak to her. Her father had stood with his back turned, shoulders stiff, as if she were already a ghost. She'd left under the cover of night.
No ceremony. No goodbye.
Just the sound of the forest swallowing her whole. The memory faded slowly, leaving behind a familiar ache in her chest. She stirred in the Alpha King's arms, breath hitching, fingers curling weakly into his coat again. He noticed immediately. His steps slowed, then stopped. "You're awake," he said quietly. She nodded once, though her eyes remained closed. She wasn't ready to look at him yet. Wasn't ready to see judgment there. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Close," he replied. "Just a little farther." She swallowed. "You don't have to." "I know." His interruption was gentle, but firm. Silence settled between them again as he started walking. The path sloped upward now, and she could feel the strain in his muscles as he carried her, though he didn't slow. Her thoughts kept circling back, caught in the same painful loops they always did. He would turn on her eventually. Everyone did. She opened her eyes then, forcing herself to look. They emerged into a clearing tucked between massive stone outcroppings. The rocks rose high on either side, forming a natural barrier against the wind. At the far end, a shallow cave yawned open, its entrance marked with old carvings worn smooth by time. The air here was warm, not just sheltered.
Warm.
A small fire burned inside the cave, flames steady and low, casting flickering light across the stone walls. Furs were laid out near it, thick and clean. Her heart clenched painfully. Shelter. Real shelter. He carried her inside and lowered her carefully onto the furs, movements surprisingly gentle for someone so powerful. The heat of the fire soaked into her immediately, easing the deep chill that had settled in her bones. She hissed softly as her ribs protested the movement. His jaw tightened. "You're hurt." "I've been worse," she lied. He crouched in front of her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, his presence heavy and solid.
"Don't," he said.
She frowned. "Don't what?" "Lie to me." Her laugh came out brittle. "You don't know me well enough to say that." His gaze held hers, steady and unflinching. "I know pain when I see it." She looked away first. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. His fingers brushed her wrist, light as a question. He frowned slightly as the silver beneath her skin responded, glowing faintly under his touch. "You're burning yourself alive holding it in," he said. Fear flared sharp in her chest. "I don't have a choice." "You do," he replied. "You just don't trust it." She laughed again, softer this time. "Smart girl." He studied her in silence for a long moment. "What happened to you?" he asked finally. The question was simple. The answer wasn't. She stared into the fire, watching the flames dance and twist, silver light flickering faintly beneath her skin in response. "I was born wrong," she said. The words tasted bitter, but familiar. She told him everything. Not all at once. Not neatly. The memories came in fragments, spilling out between long pauses and shallow breaths. The blood moon. The glowing veins. The ceremony that went wrong. The way the pack had looked at her like she was already lost. She spoke of the silver flame, of the way it answered her emotions, grew wild when she was afraid or angry, of the forbidden shift that left her neither wolf nor human, but something else entirely. She didn't look at him as she spoke. She didn't want to see the moment his expression changed. When she finished, silence filled the cave, heavy and thick. She waited for the disgust. It didn't come. When she finally looked up, he was watching her with something like quiet fury in his eyes. "They were afraid," he said. "Yes. And they made that your fault." Her throat tightened. "They said it was for the good of the pack." He let out a low, humorless sound. That's what cowards say when they don't want to admit they're wrong. Something in her chest cracked. She hadn't realized how badly she'd needed to hear that until the words settled deep and warm inside her. "You're dangerous," she said quickly, defensive reflex kicking in. "You saw it. The ground shakes when I lose control. The fire. I saw someone hunted, he interrupted. I saw wolves who should have protected you try to tear you apart. His gaze softened slightly. I saw strength you don't understand yet. Her breath caught. You don't know what you're saying. Maybe not, he admitted. But I know this. He rose to his feet and turned slightly away, giving her space without withdrawing completely. I won't force you to stay, he said. I won't promise you things I can't guarantee. She watched him, heart pounding. But you can rest here, he continued.
Heal. Think.
Decide what you want. And then, she asked, then you choose. The word echoed through her.
Choose.
No one had given her that before. She studied his broad back, the scars that mapped his skin like stories she didn't yet know. He wasn't offering salvation. He wasn't claiming her. He was offering shelter. And somehow that meant more. She curled deeper into the furs, exhaustion finally dragging her under. As sleep crept in, she felt his presence settle near the entrance of the cave, a silent sentinel between her and the world. For the first time since her exile, she let herself believe something dangerous. Maybe she wasn't broken. Maybe she was becoming. Morning didn't arrive the way it used in her memories. There was no gentle brightening. No bird song easing her out of sleep. No warmth spilling softly across her face. Instead, she woke to silence, so deep it felt sacred. Her eyes opened slowly, lashes heavy, body aching in places she hadn't noticed before. The fire had burned low during the night, its embers glowing faintly, painting the cave walls in dim orange shadows. The air was still warm, still safe, and for a brief, fragile moment, she forgot why that mattered. Then she remembered. The hunt. The fall. The silver fire screaming inside her veins. Her breath hitched as she pushed herself upright, muscles protesting. The fur slid from her shoulders, and she stiffened, half expecting to feel cold rush in again. It didn't. The Alpha King sat near the cave entrance, exactly where she'd last seen him before sleep claimed her. He hadn't shifted. He hadn't rested against the stone. He sat upright, forearms braced on his knees, head slightly bowed, as if listening to something she couldn't hear. Guarding. The words settled heavy and unfamiliar in her chest. She moved just slightly. He noticed instantly. Golden eyes lifted to her, sharp and alert, then softened when they met hers. You're awake, he said. She nodded. Her throat felt dry. I didn't mean to sleep. You needed it. His voice was steady, but there was something beneath it now, something quieter, more careful than before. She swung her legs over the edge of the furs, testing her weight. Pain flared, but it was duller than last night, easier to breathe through. She frowned down at herself.
You did something, she said. He didn't deny it.
The fire here helps. Old place. The mountain remembers how to heal. That made her pause. The mountain remembers. She followed his gaze past the cave mouth, where pale dawn light brushed against stone etched with symbols she hadn't noticed before. Curved lines. Sharp angles. Shapes that looked like claws, moons, flames. Where are we? She asked again, more carefully this time. He stood and offered her a hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. Heat surged through her fingers at the contact, not wild, not painful.
Steady.
Grounding.
Come, he said.
I want to show you something. The air outside was crisp but calm. The storm from the night before was gone entirely, leaving the world washed clean and unnervingly quiet. Snow lay untouched around the clearing, smooth and unbroken, except for one path leading away from the cave. Stone steps. Ancient ones. They were carved directly into the mountain, worn smooth by time and weather. Symbols lined their edges, similar to the ones near the cave but deeper here, more deliberate. Her heart began to beat faster. She hadn't been here before. She would have known.
As they descended, the air changed.
It grew warmer, thicker, humming faintly against her skin. The silver beneath her flesh stirred, glowing faintly now without her fear feeding it. That scared her. She wrapped her arms around herself, breathing shallowly. You said this place was old. Yes. How old? He didn't answer immediately. Older than the packs, he said finally. Older than the crowns. Older than the laws that chased you into the cold. They rounded the final bend, and the world opened. The ruins spread before them in a wide, circular hollow carved into the heart of the mountain. Massive stone pillars rose from the snow, each one etched with moons at different phases, their surfaces cracked and softened by centuries. Between them stood slabs of black stone, half buried, their faces carved with scenes frozen in time.
Wolves.
Not hunting. Not fighting.
Bowing.
They knelt before a towering figure carved at the far end of the circle. A woman. She stood tall, head lifted, arms raised. Fire bloomed from her palms, not wild or consuming, but alive, coiling, breathing. Her body was marked with glowing lines etched into the stone, veins of flame tracing her form. Silver flame. Her breath caught painfully. "That's not," she whispered. The Alpha King didn't interrupt. She stepped forward without realizing she'd moved. Her boots crunched softly against snow as she crossed the ruin, eyes locked on the carving. With every step, the warmth intensified, the hum beneath her skin growing louder, more insistent. The silver veins beneath her flesh flared brighter. Pain lanced through her wrist suddenly, sharp enough to make her gasp. She clutched it, staggering. He was there instantly, steadying her. "What's happening?" she whispered. "The mark," he said quietly. "It's waking." "I don't have a mark," she said, too fast. He looked at her wrist. She followed his gaze. The skin there burned, heat radiating outward. Light pulsed beneath it, brighter than it ever had before, gathering into a shape she'd never seen fully formed. A symbol, a flame wrapped around a crescent moon. She sucked in a sharp breath as the air around them shifted.
The ruin breathed.
Wind stirred without warning, spiraling inward toward the center of the circle. Snow lifted, dancing, spinning in slow arcs that glittered in the light. The stone beneath her feet vibrated faintly, responding to something older than sound. Whispers rose. Not voices exactly. Not words she could hear with her ears. They pressed against her mind instead, familiar and foreign all at once. Ancestors. She staggered again, overwhelmed by the sudden weight of them. Images crashed through her thoughts in a rush too fast to stop. Wolves running beneath moons long gone. Fires burning atop stone altars. A woman crowned in flame, standing unbroken while the world bowed. She cried out, clutching her head as the visions intensified. "I don't want this," she gasped. "Make it stop." The Alpha King wrapped an arm around her shoulders, anchoring her against him. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're safe. Safe." The words steadied her just enough to stay standing. The whispers sharpened, forming meaning. The one with the mark. The child of the flame. Her knees buckled as understanding slammed into her. "No," she whispered.
No, no, no.
The visions shifted again. She saw herself standing where the carved woman stood now, silver fire crowning her head, power roaring through her veins. Wolves bowed, not in fear, but in reverence. The mountain trembled beneath her feet, alive with her presence. Then the vision twisted. Fire spread unchecked. Stone cracked. Shadows rose screaming. She tore herself free with a broken sob, staggering back until she hit the Alpha King's chest. "I'm not that," she said desperately. "I can't be." He held her firmly, though his own body had gone tense, every muscle locked. "This place hasn't awakened in centuries," he said. "It responds to bloodlines long thought lost." "I'm cursed," she said. "That's all I've ever been." The whispers surged again, louder now, more insistent. "A bond older than kings." Her breath hitched sharply. Something pulled at her then, deep and undeniable, tugging her awareness toward the man holding her. The connection snapped into place with terrifying clarity, like a thread drawn tight between two souls. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "No," she whispered again, weaker this time.
He stiffened.
He felt it too. The air between them thickened, charged, humming with restrained power. The silver fire beneath her skin flared in answer, responding not to fear now, but recognition. His jaw clenched. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. She laughed weakly, hysteria edging the sound. You planned this. I plan to keep you alive, he snapped. Then, quieter. I plan to give you time. She pulled back just enough to look at him. For the first time since they met, uncertainty flickered across his face.
Fear.
Not for himself. For her. You know, she said. You know what this means. Yes. And you still brought me here. Yes. Anger surged through her chest, sharp and burning. The silver light responded instantly, flaring brighter, heat rolling off her in waves. I didn't ask for this, she said. I didn't ask to be born under a blood moon. I didn't ask for fire in my veins. I didn't ask to be hunted. I know. Then why does everything keep choosing me? She demanded. The ruin trembled. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because destiny doesn't ask permission. She shoved at his chest, desperate, furious. He didn't move an inch. I don't want to be a symbol, she said. I don't want prophecy or crowns or power that scares everyone who looks at me. The whispers softened. The warmth eased. The fire listened. I just want to stop hurting people, she whispered. His expression shifted then, reverence mixing with something darker. Something possessive. Something afraid. That's why it chose you, he said. Her breath shuddered. She shook her head. You don't get it. I do, he replied. I've watched power ruin good wolves. I've watched crowns destroy those who wore them. Then why are you looking at me like that? She asked. Because I've never seen power that listens before. That stopped her. The ruin quieted, as if waiting. Your fire responds to your heart, he continued. Not commands. Not fear. You don't burn because you're broken. You burn because you feel. She stared at him, chest tight. That makes you dangerous, she said softly. It makes you human, he countered. The mark on her wrist pulsed once, warm and steady. She looked back at the carving of the woman crowned in flame. For the first time, she noticed something she hadn't before. The woman's expression wasn't fierce. It was resolute. I'm not her, she said. No, he agreed. You're not. She turned to him, eyes blazing with silver light. Then don't ask me to become her. I won't, he said. But the world will, she whispered. Yes. Silence stretched between them, heavy and inevitable. She took a step back, breaking the charged space between them. The fire dimmed slightly, the ruin settling. I need time, she said. He inclined his head. You'll have it. She met his gaze, searching for the lie. There wasn't one. As they turned away from the ancient stones, the whispers followed, quieter now, patient. Destiny had awakened, whether she accepted it or not. The mountain did not let them leave quietly. They had barely cleared the last ring of stone when the air shifted, sharp, metallic, wrong. The warmth that had followed her from the ruin thinned, stretched, then snapped like a thread pulled too tight. She felt it before she heard it. A pressure behind the eyes. A prickle along the spine. The unmistakable sensation of being watched by too many minds at once. She slowed. The Alpha King stopped with her, shoulders squaring, head lifting as his senses reached outward. His jaw tightened, the faintest snarl pulling at his mouth before he mastered it. They've found us, he said. Her chest tightened. Who? He didn't answer. They crested the ridge together. Below them, the forest lay open and broken by torchlight. Wolves stood in clusters at the tree line, dozens of them, some in human form, others half-shifted, claws flexing, eyes glowing in the dim. At the center stood a ring of alphas, their presence heavy, dominant, pressing against the land itself. The council? Her stomach dropped. Whispers rippled through the clearing as soon as she stepped into view. She felt them strike her like stones. That's her. The marked one. Firebringer. Abomination. The silver beneath her skin stirred uneasily. The Alpha King moved slightly in front of her, not blocking her view, but making his position unmistakable. A challenge. One of the alphas stepped forward, tall and broad, his coat a pale ash color that marked him as northern-blooded. His eyes flicked briefly to the Alpha King, then locked on her with open disdain. So, he said, voice carrying easily through the clearing. The rumors are true. Another alpha laughed softly. They always are. She forced herself to stand straight, chin lifted, even as fear coiled tight in her gut. You trespass on neutral ground, the ash-coated alpha continued. You bring a destabilizing force into our territories. You awaken forbidden sights. His gaze sharpened. And you expect silence? The Alpha King answered before she could. This is my land. A murmur rippled through the gathered wolves. The Ash Alpha's lips curled. Not for long, if you continue this madness. Another stepped forward, a woman this time, her dark hair braided tight against her skull, eyes cold and calculating. She carries unstable magic, the woman said. We felt it flare across 3 borders. Packs are restless. Prey is scattering. You would risk war for her. The word her struck deeper than any accusation. She stepped around the Alpha King, heart pounding. I didn't ask for this. The woman's gaze cut to her, sharp as a blade. Power never does. The silver veins beneath her skin flared faintly, reacting to the hostility. She clenched her fists, forcing herself to breathe through it. You failed the mating rite, another alpha called out. You were cast out for a reason. Her throat tightened. The Alpha King growled low in his chest. Enough. The sound carried weight. Several wolves shifted uneasily. The Ash Alpha's eyes glittered. Careful, he warned. You are not above the council. No, the Alpha King said evenly. But neither are you. The tension snapped tighter, stretched to the breaking point. Then the shadows moved. They spilled from the tree line like living ink, crawling low along the ground before rising, twisting into shapes that mimicked wolves but lacked substance, eyes burning an unnatural violet, forms flickering as if struggling to hold themselves together. Gasps rippled through the clearing. Shades, someone whispered. How? They struck without warning. Chaos erupted. Wolves lunged, claws tearing through empty air as the shadows slipped past them, lashing out with tendrils of darkness that burned where they touched. Howls rose, sharp with pain and fury. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The silver fire surged. No, she whispered. Not now. A shade lunged toward her, jaws gaping wide. The Alpha King moved instantly, shifting mid-stride, massive wolf form colliding with the creature in a flash of teeth and fury. Darkness recoiled, hissing, reforming behind him. Another shade reached her. Fear punched through her chest, and the fire answered. It exploded outward. Silver flame roared from her skin, searing the air, driving the shadows back with a shriek that rattled the bones. The ground beneath her feet cracked, heat rippling outward in a shockwave that sent wolves stumbling. The fire did not burn blindly. It hunted. Shades disintegrated on contact, unraveling into smoke and ash. The clearing filled with the scent of ozone and scorched earth. She cried out, pain lancing through her as the power tore free. Too much, too fast. She dropped to one knee, hands digging into the dirt as the flames continued to pour from her, uncontrolled. Stop her, someone shouted. She'll tear the land apart. The Alpha King shifted back, reaching her in seconds. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me, he commanded. You're losing yourself. I can't. Her voice broke as another surge ripped through her, fire screaming for release. You can, he said fiercely. You choose it. She clung to his words like a lifeline, forcing her focus inward, searching for the thread he'd spoken of, the one tied not to fear, but to feeling. The fire resisted, raging, desperate. Then she felt it. Him. Steady. Anchored. Unyielding. She latched onto that presence, breathing through the pain, and the fire began to recede, pulling back beneath her skin in trembling waves. The shades fled, dissolving into nothing. Silence crashed down hard and heavy. The clearing lay scarred, trees charred, earth cracked, wolves staring in stunned disbelief. The council alphas turned their attention back to her, faces tight with fear and fury. The Ash Alpha spoke first. You see, he snapped. This is exactly what we warned you about. She saved us, someone argued weakly. At what cost? The woman Alpha demanded. She draws creatures that should not exist. The Alpha King rose slowly, placing himself between her and the council once more. This attack proves nothing except that something darker is stirring, he said. And she is not the cause. She is the beacon, the Ash Alpha countered. Where she goes, chaos follows. The silver beneath her skin pulsed faintly, exhausted. An older Alpha stepped forward then, his hair white, his presence heavy with authority. This cannot continue, he said. The balance is breaking. Packs are whispering of war. His gaze settled on the Alpha King. You are given a choice. The word fell like a blade. Send her away, the elder continued. Exile her beyond the borders. Sever whatever claim you believe binds you. And if I refuse? The Alpha King asked quietly. The elder's expression hardened. Then you abdicate. You surrender your crown. Your territory will be divided among the council. A low growl rippled through the gathered wolves. Her breath left her in a shaky rush. This was her fault. She stepped forward before he could respond. No, she said hoarsely. You don't get to take his crown for my existence. The elder's gaze flicked to her. Then you accept the exile. She nodded slowly, heart breaking open in her chest. I will. The Alpha King turned on her sharply. You don't decide that. I do, she said. I won't be the reason your people fall. His eyes burned, golden and furious. You think walking away will stop this? I know staying will destroy you. Silence stretched between them, thick with everything unsaid. The elder raised a staff. Then it is decided. She leaves at dawn. She is not to return. The Alpha King didn't speak, didn't move. For the first time since she'd met him, he hesitated. The moment cut deeper than any rejection she'd ever known. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe. I understand, she said quietly. She turned away before he could see the tears burn silver-hot at the corners of her eyes. Each step away felt like tearing something vital from her chest. She didn't look back. Behind her, the Alpha King stood frozen, crown heavy on his shoulders, as the world demanded its price. She did not make it far before the night caught up with her. The forest beyond the council's clearing felt different, thinner somehow, as if the land itself had pulled back, uncertain whether it should still recognize her. Snow fell again, light at first, then heavier, muting sound, swallowing tracks. Her legs burned with exhaustion she had been holding at bay through sheer will. She stumbled. Did not fall, but nearly. Her palm struck a tree to steady herself, and pain flared sharp and bright. She hissed, curling her fingers, silver light flickering weakly beneath the skin. Too much. Too fast. Too alone. She forced herself onward, each step heavier than the last. Her thoughts spiraled, tangled with the echo of the council's voices, the way the Alpha King had gone still when the choice was laid bare. He hadn't chased her. That truth hurt more than the cold. The wind shifted. Her wolf stirred uneasily, not with fear this time, but awareness. She stopped. Behind her, the forest breathed. Footsteps approached, not hurried, not cautious. Measured. Certain. Her shoulders tightened. She turned slowly, bracing herself for disappointment she wasn't sure she could survive twice. He emerged from the trees without ceremony, cloak dusted with snow, golden eyes fixed on her like he had never once looked away. You're hurt, he said. Not accusation. Not command. Concern. Something in her chest cracked. I'm fine, she lied, the words brittle. He glanced at her hand, still curled protectively against her side. You're bleeding. It doesn't matter. He closed the distance between them in 3 long strides and caught her wrist before she could pull away. His touch was warm, grounding, sending a shiver up her arm that had nothing to do with the cold. It matters to me, he said. She tried to tug free. Failed. He wasn't rough, but he was unyielding. You made your choice, she said, voice tight. You should go back. His jaw flexed. I didn't finish choosing. He guided her toward a shallow cave, tucked into the rock face, shielded from the worst of the wind. Inside, the air was still, carrying the faint mineral scent of stone and earth. He released her only long enough to shrug off his cloak and wrap it around her shoulders before she could protest.
She froze.
The weight of it, the warmth, the scent of pine and smoke and him, hit her harder than any blow. "Sit," he said quietly. She hesitated, then sank onto the stone ledge along the wall, legs trembling. He knelt in front of her, careful, deliberate, as if she were something fragile rather than a force that could crack the earth. He took her injured hand again, turning it palm up. Blood welled from shallow cuts, already steaming faintly. "You burn yourself when you lose control," he observed. She swallowed. "It's easier than burning everyone else." Something dark flickered through his eyes. He pressed his thumb gently against her pulse, grounding her, then tore a strip from his sleeve and bound her hand with practiced ease. The closeness was unbearable. She could feel his breath, steady and warm. See the faint scars along his knuckles, the marks of battles survived but never forgotten. "Why did you follow me?" she asked softly. He finished tying the bandage, then leaned back on his heels, gaze lifting to meet hers. "Because sending you away like that felt wrong." That wasn't an answer. A muscle in his jaw tightened. "It's the only honest one I have." Silence settled between them, heavy but not empty. She hugged the cloak closer around herself. "You should have let me go." He studied her for a long moment. "You don't believe that." "I believe you'll lose everything if you don't." "And you believe you deserve to be alone," he countered. "That doesn't make it true." Her breath caught. He rose then, building a small fire with a flick of his wrist and a careful spark, the flames low and controlled. The light painted his features in gold and shadow, softening the hard lines just enough to reveal the man beneath the crown. She watched him in silence. Eventually he spoke again. "They told you you were unstable." "Yes." "They told you you were dangerous." "Yes." "And you believed them." She didn't answer. He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing past the silver beneath her skin, past the fear she wore like armor. "Power doesn't frighten me," he said quietly. "Lies do." Her throat tightened. "You didn't see what they saw." "I saw enough." She shook her head. "You saw a glimpse. That's all. When it gets worse, when I lose control." "You didn't," he interrupted. She frowned.
"What?"
"You were overwhelmed," he said. "Provoked. Hunted. And still, you stopped yourself." She stared at him, stunned. No one had ever framed it that way. He leaned back against the cave wall, folding his arms loosely. "I've seen monsters. They don't bleed for others." The fire crackled softly. Time stretched. Her defenses, worn thin by exhaustion and loss, began to slip. "My mother tried to protect me," she said suddenly. When the mark appeared, he didn't interrupt. "She told them it was a blessing," she continued. "That the old stories spoke of balance, not destruction. They told her to be quiet." Her voice wavered. She was quiet after that. Too quiet. He felt the weight in her words like a blow. "My father wouldn't look at me," she said. "Not after the ceremony failed. I think it hurt him to see me alive when the pack had already decided I was something else." She swallowed hard. "I learned early that loving me cost people things." The Alpha King's hands curled into fists at his sides. "That's not love," he said. "That's fear wearing a crown." She laughed softly, humorless. "You sound like someone who's been burned before." His gaze dropped to the fire. "I had a mate," he said. The words fell gently and shattered everything. Her breath hitched. "Had." She was strong, he continued, voice steady but distant. "Brave. Too willing to sacrifice herself for others." Her chest tightened. She believed power was something to give away, he said. She was wrong. The fire flared, then settled. "They took her," he said quietly. "The council. Not openly. Not all at once. But piece by piece, until there was nothing left of who she was." He looked up then, eyes bright with old grief. I let them. Her heart ached. I chose my crown, he said. And it cost me everything. Silence pressed in around them, thick with shared understanding. That's why you hesitated, she whispered. Yes. And why you followed me, she added. Yes. She studied him, seeing not an alpha king, but a man still carrying the weight of a choice that had broken him. I don't want to be another loss you carry, she said. His gaze sharpened. You're not. You don't know that. I know myself, he said. And I know what it feels like to stand where you're standing. The firelight danced between them, intimate, fragile. Slowly, he reached out, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the heat of him. I see you, he said. All of you. The fear. The fire. The parts you think make you unlovable. Her breath trembled. And, she asked. And I'm still here. Something inside her gave way. She leaned forward without quite realizing she was moving, drawn by the gravity between them. He met her halfway, stopping just short of contact, breath mingling with hers. The moment stretched, aching, electric. Her wolf surged, recognizing something ancient and right. Panic flared. She pulled back sharply, pressing a hand to her chest. I can't. He stilled instantly. Tell me why. Because if I let myself believe this, if I trust you, her voice broke. And it goes wrong. I don't think I'll survive it. He nodded once, understanding written plainly across his face. Then don't trust me, he said. Not yet. She blinked. What? Stay, he said simply.
Heal. Rest.
Learn control on your terms. And after? He met her gaze, unwavering. Then you decide whether I'm worth the risk. The fire crackled softly, the storm outside held at bay. For the first time in years, she felt something dangerous bloom in her chest.
Hope.
Not loud, not certain, but alive. The night did not stay gentle. Hope, when it comes too quietly, always seems to anger the world. Dawn broke pale and cold, light bleeding slowly through the mountain mist. She woke to the sound of breath that was not her own, steady, grounded, close. For one fragile moment, she forgot fear, forgot exile, forgot the silver fire sleeping beneath her skin. Then memory returned. She sat up too fast, pain lancing through her ribs. The Alpha King was already awake, sitting near the cave entrance, gaze fixed on the forest beyond as if he had not slept at all. How long? She asked. He didn't turn. Long enough. The tone told her everything. They're coming, she said. Yes. She pushed to her feet, wrapping the cloak tighter around herself. The fire inside her stirred, restless, sensing what she already knew. Then I should leave, she said. He turned then, eyes sharp.
No.
You can't protect me from them forever. I'm not trying to. Then what are you doing? Buying time, he said. For the truth. Her stomach tightened. What truth? Before he could answer, the forest answered for him. A horn sounded, low, resonant, ancient. The council's call. It rolled through the trees, vibrating through bone and blood, impossible to ignore. Wolves howled in response across the mountains, the sound carrying warning and command in equal measure. She staggered back a step. They promised dawn, she whispered. They said I had until dawn. They lie when it suits them, he said grimly. The horn sounded again, closer this time. The Alpha King moved fast, grabbing his cloak, his weapon. We leave.
Now.
But the air shifted before they could take 2 steps. Power slammed down around the cave like an invisible cage. She gasped as the pressure hit her chest, crushing, suffocating. Runes flared into existence along the cave walls, burning with council magic, binding magic. Her knees buckled. Stay behind me, he ordered. Figures emerged from the mist, more than before. Alphas. Elders. Enforcers. Even wolves from her former pack. She recognized faces she had once trusted. The betrayal cut deep. The ash-coated alpha stepped forward, expression cold with triumph. You see, he said to the others. He chose her. The elder with the staff raised it, the runes burning brighter. And now he will answer for it. She tried to breathe through the pressure, silver light flickering beneath her skin in agitation. Release her, the Alpha King growled. This ends now. The elder's gaze slid to her. It ends today, yes. A murmur rippled through the gathered wolves as another figure stepped forward, a woman cloaked in ceremonial black, her eyes alight with cruel satisfaction. The seer. We were wrong, the seer said, voice carrying eerily well. The prophecy was never about balance. Her heart dropped. The seer raised her hand, and the air shimmered. Images burst into being, visions forced into the minds of every wolf present. Fire consuming forests, stone melting into rivers, wolves screaming beneath a silver sky. She cried out as the images tore through her, her own memories twisted and reflected back at her like a nightmare. This is her future, the seer declared. The child of the flame brings ruin. She always has. That's a lie, the Alpha King snarled. Is it? The seer countered. Or is it simply incomplete? The visions shifted. Now she saw herself crowned, not in glory, but alone, standing atop a mountain of ash.
No back. No mate.
No world left to rule. She shook her head violently. Stop it. The seer's smile widened. The prophecy was clear. Her power ends the age of alphas. The crowns fall. The world burns clean. Fear surged through the crowd, raw and contagious. She must be destroyed, someone shouted. No, another said. She must be bound. She must be sacrificed. The words stacked on top of each other, a chorus of condemnation. Her former pack stepped forward. The Alpha who had exiled her met her gaze for the first time in years. You see now, he said. We were right to cast you out. Something inside her shattered. The silver fire roared awake. No, she whispered. The Alpha King turned to her, panic flashing across his face. Listen to me. But the bindings tightened. Pain exploded through her body as the runes flared, forcing the fire outward, ripping control from her grasp. She screamed, the sound tearing from her throat as silver flame erupted violently from her skin, blasting against the invisible cage. The ground cracked open. Wolves were thrown back by the shockwave. The Alpha King lunged for her, slamming into the binding with a roar, his power crashing against the Council's magic in a blinding collision.
Stop, he shouted.
You're killing her. That is the point, the Ash Alpha said coldly. The seer raised her hands higher, chanting. The fire surged higher, brighter, out of control. Her vision blurred. Her wolf screamed. She felt herself splitting, body and spirit tearing apart under the strain. This is what they wanted. This is what they always expected. Rage burned through the pain, sharp and sudden.
No.
Not like this.
Not for them.
With a sound that was half scream, half roar, she tore herself free. Not from the bindings, but from the shape she had been clinging to. Her bones shifted. Not fully. Not cleanly. Her hands elongated into claws of silver flame. Her eyes burned white-hot. The fire wrapped around her like living armor as she ripped a hole through the binding with sheer will. The Council staggered back, shocked. She stood at the center of the clearing, no longer entirely wolf, no longer entirely human, something in between, something ancient and terrifying. The Alpha King stared at her, awe and fear warring in his gaze. I didn't choose this, she said, her voice layered now, echoing with something older. But I won't die for your lies. The seer faltered for the first time. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, she said. The fire surged again, knocking the Council's forces back, but she did not attack them. She turned away.
Toward the forest.
Toward exile deeper than any border. Wait, the Alpha King called. She hesitated, just for a breath. If she stayed, they would never stop hunting her. If she stayed, he would lose everything. Her heart broke open. I won't be your sacrifice, she said softly. Then she ran. The forest swallowed her in silver fire and shadow, her form flickering as she fled, neither girl nor beast, but something becoming. Behind her, the Council stared in stunned silence. And the Alpha King fell to his knees, the sound of her name tearing from his throat as the world realized, far too late, what it had just driven away. She did not stop running until the mountain itself seemed to give up trying to follow her. The forest thinned. The air changed. Snow turned to ash under her feet, then to bare stone, then to earth that pulsed faintly with heat, as if the world remembered her even when she tried to forget herself. Her breath tore in and out of her chest, sharp and burning. Every step felt like it might split her apart.
She did not slow.
She could not. Behind her, the echoes of the council still rang, voices layered with fear, with hatred, with certainty that she was a mistake that needed correcting. Ahead of her was nothing but the unknown. And for the first time in her life, she chose it. The silver fire did not fade when she crossed the borderlands. It followed her.
No.
It waited. It coiled beneath her skin like a living thing, restless, aching, no longer content to be suppressed or negotiated with. Every emotion she tried to bury fed it: grief, rage, longing, the raw, unbearable image of the Alpha King falling to his knees as she fled. Her chest hurt most when she thought of him, not because he had hesitated, but because he had stayed. She staggered into a ravine split by ancient lava stone, the air shimmering with heat despite the high altitude. She collapsed there, palms pressed into the ground, silver light spilling through her fingers. "I don't want this," she whispered into the earth. The fire answered anyway. It rose, not violently, not yet, but with purpose. Images flooded her mind. Not the twisted visions the seer had forced upon her, but older ones. Truer ones. Women standing in flame, without being consumed. Wolves bowing, not in fear, but in recognition. A bond that did not cage power, but tempered it. A voice followed the images. Not loud. Not commanding. Ancient. Familiar. "You were never meant to burn alone." She gasped, tears streaking down her face, hissing to steam as they touched the heat around her. "Then why does it hurt?" she asked aloud. "Because you were taught to fear yourself." The silver veins beneath her skin brightened, branching, mapping her body like constellations. "Stand," the voice urged. Her legs shook as she pushed herself upright. Pain screamed through her muscles as the fire surged higher, hotter, no longer restrained by fear. Bones cracked. She screamed, but did not fall. Her spine arched as power tore through her, reshaping, rewriting. Not destroying. Claiming. Her wolf surged forward, not as a beast clawing for release, but as a presence merging seamlessly with her own. Spirit and flesh aligned. Breath and flame became one. Her form expanded, then refined. Fur of molten silver rippled over her skin, catching light that did not exist. Her eyes ignited, no longer white-hot chaos, but steady, luminous fire. When she opened her mouth, her breath shimmered, carrying the weight of something that could command mountains. She stood taller, stronger, whole. The ground beneath her split with a thunderous crack as ancient sigils flared to life across the ravine walls, symbols older than the council, older than kings. The land recognized her. Far away, wolves across every territory lifted their heads in unison. The world felt her return. She did not roar. She inhaled, and the fire obeyed. She turned back toward the mountain she had fled from, heart steady now. Fear burned down to something sharper. Resolve. The council's stronghold trembled as she approached. Not with violence, but with warning. Torches guttered. Stone groaned. Wolves lining the battlements stiffened as pressure rolled through the air, heavy and undeniable. The Alpha King felt it before anyone else. He had not moved from the great hall since she ran. Had not removed his crown. Had not spoken. The doors slammed open as an alpha burst in, breathless. "She's coming." Silence fell. Fear rippled through the gathered council. Another voice whispered, "It's too strong." The seer backed away slowly, eyes wide. This wasn't how it was supposed to. The doors at the far end of the hall exploded inward. Not shattered. Opened. Blown wide by a wave of heat and light that rolled through the chamber like a living tide. Silver fire licked along the stone floor, stopping inches from the thrones, illuminating the hall in blinding brilliance. She stepped through it. Every wolf present felt it. The pressure of her presence dropped them to one knee, alphas included. The ancient bond flared in their blood, older than rank, older than law. Recognition.
She did not look at them at first.
Her gaze found him. The Alpha King stood slowly, disbelief etched across his face. His wolf surged, howling recognition so loud it rattled the rafters. She walked toward him, each step leaving glowing sigils in the stone that faded only after she passed. "I am not your sacrifice," she said, her voice calm and devastating. The seer screamed, "You will doom us all." She turned her gaze then, slow, deliberate. "No," she said. "I will end your lies." With a single gesture, the visions the seer had twisted burst apart, replaced by truth, raw, unfiltered. The council saw it all. The origin of the prophecy. The missing verses. The truth they had buried to protect their power. The fire was never meant to destroy the world. It was meant to burn corruption out of it. Wolves cried out as the truth slammed into them. The Ash Alpha fell back, horror dawning across his face. "We were wrong." "Yes," she said simply. The Alpha King stepped forward then, past the council, past the elders, past the fear. He stopped in front of her. The hall held its breath. "They told me to choose," he said. She searched his face, bracing for the old pain. He reached out, slowly, reverently, and cupped her jaw, silver fire licking harmlessly around his fingers. "I choose you," he said. The world seemed to exhale. The council erupted into chaos, voices rising, protests breaking apart under the sheer weight of what stood before them. The Alpha King turned on them with a snarl that shook the hall. He slammed the great doors shut with a single gesture, the sound echoing like thunder. His gaze burned gold. "Mine," he growled. "Not possession."
Claim. Bond.
The ancient magic surged between them, sealing what had always been waiting to be acknowledged. The land answered with a deep, resonant hum as crowns of light flared briefly above them both, hers silver, his gold, before fading into something shared. She leaned into him, breath trembling, power steady. For the first time, she did not feel alone inside the fire. For the first time, the world did not demand her destruction to survive. It demanded her rise. And somewhere deep beneath the earth, something old stirred, knowing the age of fear was ending. And the age of flame had only just begun. The hall did not celebrate. Victory, when it comes wrapped in truth, is never loud. Silver fire still shimmered along the stone floor, breathing slowly now, like a living thing at rest. Wolves remained frozen where they stood, some on their knees, some gripping pillars for balance, some staring at her as if the world had tilted and refused to right itself again. She felt all of it, the fear,
The awe.
the doubt that crawled behind their eyes even after the truth had been burned clean. Power did not erase memory. She stood beside the Alpha King, his presence solid at her back, one hand still warm against her spine. It grounded her, even as the ancient energy hummed through her bones. This was the moment they would remember. Not the running girl in the snow. Not the exile bleeding into the forest. This version. The one who did not bow. The council elder struggled to his feet, hands shaking as he leaned on his staff. His voice was quieter now. Older. Stripped of command. "What happens now?" he asked. The question echoed. She looked around the hall, at the wolves who had once demanded her destruction, at the ones who had stayed silent when it mattered, at the few whose eyes shone with something dangerously close to hope. What happens now? The fire inside her stirred, not restless, not wild, but patient. She understood it now. Power was not a weapon. It was a mirror. "Now," she said softly, "you learn to live without fear deciding for you." Some wolves flinched. Good. Fear had ruled them long enough. The Alpha King stepped forward, his voice carrying across the chamber with quiet authority. The council stands down. Murmurs broke out immediately. "You can't. This breaks tradition. The packs will riot." He turned, golden eyes flashing. Silence slammed back into place. Tradition built on lies deserves to fall, he said. And if any pack challenges that. He glanced at her, not as a shield, as an equal. They will answer to both of us. Something shifted in the air then, subtle, irreversible. Not submission. Alignment. She felt it ripple outward, felt wolves across the territories lift their heads again, unsettled, awakened, aware that the world they knew had cracked open. This was not an ending. It was a fault line. Later, much later, the hall emptied. The council dispersed in fractured silence, carrying truth they did not yet know how to live with. Guards stepped back. Doors remained closed, not as a prison, but as a boundary.
She stood alone with him at last.
The fire dimmed to a gentle glow beneath her skin, warm instead of consuming. Exhaustion crept in now that adrenaline faded, but it did not weaken her. It humanized her. He turned toward her slowly, as if afraid she might vanish if he moved too fast. "You came back," he said. She met his gaze. "I wasn't done." A breath left him that sounded dangerously close to relief. "I thought I'd lost you," he admitted. She stepped closer. "You didn't." His hand lifted, hovering near her cheek, asking without words. She leaned into it. The contact was electric, not explosive, not frantic, but deep, anchoring. The bond hummed softly between them, ancient and alive. "I was so afraid," she said quietly, "that if I returned, I'd become exactly what they feared." "And what did you become?" he asked. She considered the question. "Someone who chose herself." His thumb brushed her cheek, reverent. "That's all I ever wanted for you." They stood there in the quiet aftermath, surrounded by echoes of power and consequence, knowing the world beyond these walls was already shifting, already whispering her name in fear and fascination. She knew what came next would not be easy. There would be resistance. There would be blood. There would be moments when even her strength would not feel like enough. But she also knew this. She would not face it alone. She looked out through the high windows where dawn had begun to creep across the mountains, pale gold bleeding into silver sky. Once, she had run from that light. Now it waited for her. And somewhere beyond the ridges, beyond the borders and broken prophecies, something old and restless stirred, aware that the fire it feared had learned to walk without chains. The world would test her again. It always does. So the question lingered, soft, haunting, unavoidable. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have stood beside the fire, or tried to put it out? And if this story burned something open inside you, if it made your chest ache, if it made you feel seen in the parts of yourself the world once tried to silence, then stay. Subscribe to Moonbound Werewolf Romance Stories. Because here, we don't tell gentle tales. We tell stories of power reclaimed, of love chosen in defiance of fear, and of flames that refuse to die.